Yes. I will use the 5 and it's reasonable.
I'm not sure that. No?
So Angela, you'll be able to count that. Because public comment is always.
I mean, I gotta see this for the.
Okay, sure. Make sure that if you want to speak tonight, that you have signed in out the front, unless you are the applicant. If you are the applicant, we do not make you sign in. However, it does help if we have, if you are going to be speaking, because you may give us your name and your full everything, but it's garbled on tape and we're writing down and just make sure we got it right.
Would you like him to sign in?
Uh,
Would you like him to sign in? Do you?
No, I think they have his contact information, and everything written, so, but otherwise, anyone else?
That's the whole Cheryl's way.
Are there two different ones?
No, no, I'm just saying, she had two forms. So there's one. Try to change it, but she didn't.
Good. What are you doing?
I'm just gonna use my watch.
Is this too complicated for you?
It doesn't work.
Commissioners ready? Are you ready?
There's more seats up here.
Thank you.
Okay. It's 6 p.m. I call the meeting to order of the Care Park Planning Commission on October 13th. Before I get started, I remind everyone, if you are going to make any public comments tonight, you must sign in the sign-out sheet out in the lobby with your name, address, and phone number. I also remind everyone, please turn off their phones or silence them so we're not interrupted. We first have on the, everyone is here is John here? John's over there. Okay, so everyone's here. We have Carol and Chad and Angelina for the staff. Awesome. Okay, we have a consent agenda consisting of the minutes from September 8th, the financial report from September 27th, and we do not have any other correspondence except having booth issues tonight on our agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Terry Graff has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Russ is seconded. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Great. Moving on to reports from the staff. First, Chad's not here. Carol, do you have anything to report?
Just that in January meeting tentatively, seemed like a long ways off, the DLCD, the Department of Land Conservation Development Commission staff, our local rep is Brett Estes, and he's going to be providing a training for the Planning Commission, land use training. So.
Can you repeat again what DLCD stands for?
Department of Land Conservation and Development, and the LCDC is the Land Conservation Development Commission. They're the appointed group. The DLCD is the staff.
So is that meeting then
Here,
devoted to that?
yes, well,
It will be devoted to it?
you know, without knowing exactly what else is coming up,
Okay,
it will be about an hour and 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So we'll, as it gets closer, we'll see how it works.
And you'll have cookies?
If you say so.
Okay, do you have anything else to report, Carol? No. Chad, do you have anything to report?
Just a few things, just under planning, vacation rentals, looks like we have another one sold, so currently we're at 71 active. I think when we started, we were about 110, 115, so things just kind of keep It's going down a little bit by a little bit there. And then the only other thing, the correspondence side, we heard you about the background information for the Elk Collaborative issue. We provided you with this information that's in here, which really should clear up a lot of the issues or questions that you have. And then I'd like maybe if you could read that, and then potentially next month, we can go down the list and start talking about some of the things that we want to work on. Unless you have another way that you'd like to do that, Madam President.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful way to do it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, great. Commissioners, do you have anything tonight? Looking. When will Mr. Frank be doing his presentation? Goals. Under goals, okay. Well, then here we are, we're at goals. Now.
Very good.
No, thank you. Not unless you want to put me on.
Fellow commissioners, in front of you, you guys have a initial summary of the comprehensive plan. Essentially what Sharon and myself have begun is narrowing down the 40+ page comprehensive plan into what I'm going to call a rack card. A rack card is essentially a 3.75 inch by 8.5 inch glossy front and back card that would be available for the community to have an initial understanding, a simple understanding of the comprehensive plan. So what we have basically done is pretty much go through the goals of the plan and just finesse them and shorten them and make them digestible in that way. The other information that will be on here will be, of course, like a link to the website, which will have the full plan. And we'll probably put a nice photo or two on there and the city logo. And the dates of the plan, 1994 and 2019. So what I would like you all to do is to take this home and just kind of parse it out and add any things that you think are important to it, and or delete anything that you think is not as important to that. Because again, this is supposed to be a pretty simple just review of what is in there, just the basic general understanding of that. So that's what this initial breakdown is. So I don't think we really want to get into all of that tonight, but feel free to, I don't know, Angelina, if I can say this, email Angelina any corrections you may have to this, and then she can send them out to all of us and that kind of stuff. And then I'll compile that, and next month have just another draft number 2 of that.
Were there any questions about the process? Not about the sheet, but just about the process from anyone? Questions? John, are you still there? Yeah, you're there. I forget about you, I'm sorry. Okay, well, thank you, Don, and we will take a look at it and come back next meeting then to discuss and send any corrections or additions to Angelina. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Excellent. Other things on the goals list, anything else? Anything else from anyone?
Well, we're working on 2 items on the goals list already, so
Okay,
maybe it's enough for now.
that's a good start. All right, moving ahead. Next on the agenda is visitors' comments. If anyone has comments tonight about items that are not on the agenda, this is a time where you can share your concerns or whatever you might have to say to us. Does anyone have any comments tonight? I'm not seeing any from this group. I'm not seeing any from online. All right, moving on. We have a public hearing. So I have some documentation. I got it. Public hearing. I'm going to open the hearing on public hearing 22-07.ZMA Iron Tribe, an application for zone change request submitted by Iron Tribe, located at 1401 Oster Road and further described as Assessor's Plot 6.10.10D, tax lot 1400. Said request is to change the zone from rural agricultural RA, section 3.0, rural agricultural zone to commercial C2, section 3.5, general commercial zone, in order to locate a residential facility as defined in GCO section 1 definitions. Commissioners. Do any of you have a conflict of interest, an ex parte contact, or personal bias?
I visited the site.
I did visit this site.
You visited also, Sharon,
Oh, yeah, I did too.
and Russ did, and I did. So we visited.
And Judy
Judy did, yes, yes. Yeah, it doesn't record nods, so. Speak. The tape is good, but it's not that good. Okay, so we've gone and seen the property. Audience, are there any challenges to the commission's ability to make an impartial decision? None. I need to read this statement. Oh yes, I'm supposed to read that here. So I need to read this. I've read it many times. Please hang in there with me. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide their name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city's zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in making a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact are in the city's staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes apply to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council or land use board of appeals, or to seek damages in circuit court due to condition of approval. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the planning commission for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence, arguments, or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearings body shall grant the request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, a continuance to a time and date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence, argument, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197.763 6A through E. Having already checked for any conflicts of interest or ex parte contact, and with no challenges from those that are here, I then move to the staff report. Carol?
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I'm going to summarize the staff report. Everybody's had this for a week. And there will be additions and comments that I've accumulated since then. So I'll be bringing those up again, those up tonight as well. So this is a quasi, and forgive me for sometimes repeating the process, but we do have a couple new planning commissioners, and I tend to want to train them at the same time, and if bear with me on that. This is a quasi judicial zone change, and it applies to privately owned land. Planning Commission makes a recommendation on this request to the City Council, and then the City Council by ordinance makes the final decision. So you're a body tonight, and if this continues, to consider as a recommendation to the City Council in whatever your action is. If you are willing to go along through the staff report with me, I'll hop around mainly, but try and just summarize just the key points. We have the applicants here. The letters of testimony have been coming in up until an hour and a half ago. And so you don't have them all, nor have you had a chance to read them all, I don't think. So the record so far is there's 3 letters from Deanna Mansell. There's a letter from Donnie McGinnis. There's a email from Mardine Tice, an email from Tanya. It's just some kind of a computer name. There's no signature to it. It says, thanks, Tanya. And then a letter from Carrie Richter representing Bob Morey. And so for the record, the Richter letter came to my personal email, and it's a good thing I looked before it came, because otherwise you wouldn't have received that tonight. But I haven't had a chance to digest it yet. Okay, also in the exhibits, we have the Seaside Airport development zone section that is not the same as the Gerhardt airport zone designation, but since it's a seaside airport and we have our own provisions, but we have obtained some information just today that will try and make clear to you the impacts of that. We also have a Oregon guide for examining local land use with a fair housing lens.
That's the lawyer, Peter Watts.
Here.
Yeah, hi, Peter. Examining local land use with a fair housing lens, and it's a guide that may come up tonight through some of the questioning, so.
We don't have that.
You don't have that, but we have it at the staff level. We've had it for a day, and I might refer to it, so it will be part of the record. Okay, so the property is east of Highway 101. It joins the south side of Oster Road, and it's 0.8 acres. 1 tax lot. There's a house on the property, and I also wanted to make sure you have these photographs that were taken of the property by Jack. Okay, so you have Oster Road is the main road. What was Railroad Avenue runs along the west property line, but apparently that's all under the ownership now of the asphalt business.
Carol, were those photographs in the packet? I didn't see those.
They're in your email.
They're in
Okay.
the, yeah.
I'll look again.
Oh, sorry, was that John?
John,
Yeah, here we go, okay. And I forget to look a little bit too. Okay, so that's just some of the background information. In the staff report, I've taken a page to remind you of some definitions, because sometimes definitions matter. And so we have a definition for development, and this you wouldn't consider as a development because it's really a land use in an existing building. There's no new development, but it does come under the definition of development because it's making a material change in use or appearance of a structure or land. And so this is considered development. And the reason it's important because it can trigger some other things in the zoning code, particularly transportation street requirements, building and fire code analysis, and just a little bit of background. Also, the dwelling for a single family dwelling, I mean, the definition right now is not compliant with the state statute. And of course, this is an old definition that has never been changed, as far as I know, in terms of the original zoning ordinance. But a detached residential unit other than a manufactured dwelling design and part that's not, is no longer compliant with state statutes and occupied by one family only. So we are in violation of state statutes in that regard. In 2021, the Oregon legislature overruled the one family only restriction by passing House Bill 2583 and says that maximum occupancy limits may not be established or enforced by any local government for any residential dwelling unit if it's based on the familial or non-familial relationships among occupants. In other words, you don't have to be related anymore, like our definition now says, one family only. So that, obviously we have not had this come before us, and this is a new kind of land use for us. And it's taken us quite a bit of time and to get up to speed education-wise on what this is and how it fits in. And it brings forth facts such as our zoning code is not currently up to date. And so Peter Watts, our city attorney, is here on Zoom, and he will help you with any questions you have about those kind of legal issues that have been raised. Now, in terms of a definition, I went a little further and talked to other jurisdictions and several email conversations with the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority, land use planners in St. Helens, Warrenton, Marion County, Clatsop County, who've had similar inquiries about this type of land use. And in those mentioned, those St. Helens, Warrenton, Marion County, and Clatsop County have all defined the Iron Tribe facility or like as a single family dwelling. This is a single family dwelling. And again, this is a whole new bag. You can no longer limit the number of people in a single family dwelling, and they are no longer required to be related. This probably all is just part of the vast amount of affordable housing, housing opportunities, housing for disabled adults, trying to find other methods of housing, particularly for those that are disadvantaged or disabled, and others. Just how about just price? So housing is a top and front and center of everybody's mind that is dealing with things like we're dealing with tonight. So in essence, it's not a new land use, but it's a change in the interior occupancy of the dwelling. Each of those jurisdictions require no special permits, no zone changes, no conditional uses for the Iron Tribe-like facility. And their approval is based on the Uniform Building Code, occupancy limits, fire code, adequate sewer and water facilities typical for a residential dwelling. Well, that's an interesting background for us tonight, and we, as a team here, the city attorney, the city manager, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to do with this, and decided that the more cautious route was to notify the neighbors and let them know, and call this a residential facility, which definition top of page 3 is a facility licensed by and under the authority of the Department of Human Resources, the ORS number, which provides residential care all alone or in conjunction with training or treatment or a combination thereof for 6 to 15 individuals who need not be related. This is our current definition and in our zoning code, and it's been there for a long time. Staff persons required to meet Department of Human Resources licensing requirements shall not be counted in the number of facility residents and need not be related to anyone there. So for reference, that's a residential facility is what we chose as the closest category. Putting the statutes aside, the Fair Housing Council land use guidelines and the other things that are happening today, just residential facility is a 40-year-old definition at least. we've been legally advised to bring it the way we brought it in this category, okay? So in order for the applicant who's filed for a zone change, who's actually now the city's gone straight to the building permit and the septic approval and the safety requirements for their facility, say, well, we have an opportunity, we have a house, we're interested in the houses for sale, this is the house. I don't know if the owner is here. Oh, the owner is here, Mr. Fellur. Okay, and so, good, I have a few questions for you, but anyway, it's been on the market, he's trying to sell the house, Iron Tribe wants to buy it, and put another facility in like they've done in other jurisdictions. Okay, now there's a longer section here about who is Iron Tribe, and I don't really want to read it all because I asked them a lot of questions and I gave you the answers. And it's been available for a week, so maybe if you have any questions, you can come back to that in a minute. Basically, it's an option for individuals to live in a clean and sober housing while recovering and reuniting with their families. It does not require licensing by the Oregon Health Authority. Unlike what we thought in the past was. It is certified by a national agency. And according to the Northwest Housing Authority, there's a 2 to 3 year waiting list for people with disabilities, people that have come out of the criminal system and are free to reunite with their families for rental assistance vouchers. And so here are people that have asked for the vouchers for rental assistance. They have issues. And they don't have anywhere to live, and Iron Tribe provides housing until they can be placed with a Section 8 voucher for rental assistance and start paying. Iron Tribe does not charge a rent for any of the participants in their facility, and certainly the applicant will clarify any of this that might be wrong. Okay, so moving right along. Moving into our normal staff format here, are there any comments from the fire chief, city manager, police chief, public works, building inspector? Mainly not. The one from the police chief was law enforcement understands that this is a zone change for a use as a multi-person living environment for individuals that need help with proving their lives. Without some type of on-site supervision or staff, any issues will fall upon law enforcement, which is already low on manpower. So that is the most important staff comment. Some didn't comment at all. They had no comment. So that means they didn't have any objections. Okay. Now, going on to the site, the property right now is zoned rural agricultural. Residential agricultural. That's the right title. Yeah, and it's occupied, it's a 4 to 5 bedroom dwelling. It's vacant and for sale. And I think you've got the photos, we know what's on all sides of it. The sub area, this kind of sub neighborhood, if you want to call it that, is designated a mix of zoning categories and different uses in both City of Gerhart and City of Seaside's jurisdiction. Surrounding uses are commercial to the west and northwest. We've got the Hollander business, and actually he has some apartments back there. He has storage units, there's a paint shop. And there's another storage unit across the other side of Oster Road at the highway. There's a single family dwelling to the east and north, one of which is the owner. And then there's another owner. And then Bayview Asphalt is on 6 tax lots to the east and the south in the City of Seaside city limits. As I guess you'd call it an industrial use. And next to that is the Seaside Airport, adjoining asphalt business. So as you can see, it's quite a mix of old and new, not new, actually, they're all pretty old uses, as I recall. In general, the site, of course, is subject to a tsunami subduction zone, earthquake cause situation, and this would be a little bit higher up than some places. The site is 17 feet at elevation, but as you go east, the land drops to zero, to sea level. But the site is set up above that as it faces the old railroad avenue. The RA zone by Gerhard zoning map and the urban growth boundary, there's nothing new there. So right now, the RA zone is a 1 acre minimum rural agricultural zone. It's a single family dwelling zone. And nothing special to add, 30-foot height limits. You can have lots of accessory uses and structures. A residential home as a conditional use, let's see, in the RA zone, which limits the number to 5. And the proposal better fits the residential facility category, which is 6 to 15 individuals, which is not allowed in the RA zone. And it is allowed in the C2 and the R3 zones. Now, when the applicant was trying to come and talk to us about this, they said, well, what do I have to do I want to buy this house for this transitional housing? And so we said, well, you're an RA zone and not permitted, and you're not at home, you're a facility, so there's 2 zones that you can, actually, we said we know you can be a C2 zone, and there's some C2 activity there already that's historically been there, and the airport. So there was some logic to that. And so that's what she applied for, as a C2 zone. She didn't want the C2, she wanted whatever it takes. She wanted to be in St. Helens, where it didn't take anything, just go get a building permit. But anyway, in this case, this house is a perfect match for their needs, apparently, and so she just taking orders from the city is how to go about this. And the R3 zone is also an option. So, this has been unfolding for a couple of months, and you have to understand that we didn't have all the answers at the beginning, and we're still collecting information. So anyway, the purpose of the C2 zone is to provide a broad range of commercial uses and activities to serve the needs of the city and its visitors. And it's residential facilities and outright use in the C2 zone. It's just a little different than residential, but then you have your map there that shows the different zoning all around. It's not predominantly residential. I mean, it looks more residential because of the colors, but all this is Bayview asphalt. And this is the airport, so it's not true to some of the uses are not true to the zoning that's applied. A little bit late in the process, we also got involved in the airport's overlay zone. And I don't think you had the full benefit of getting that information in the staff report. I'm giving it to you right now. The airport is zoned airport overlay zone, and the uses and aspects of that zone would apply. Not the seaside zoning or not the FAA, just the Gerhard Airport overlay zone. And that zone is primarily, I'm really summarizing it. I don't want to take hours getting through this. The purpose is to avoid.
So
The
Carol,
primary purpose is to
Carol,
avoid.
Peter Watts.
Yeah.
So I'm double booked tonight, and so I can only be on this call until 7 o'clock. And so I know that we want to get through the staff report, but to the extent, the airport issues and the difference between Gerhard and Seaside
Okay.
are perhaps relevant, but if we can get to the questions, because I think I need to clarify some things that have been said. that would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you for interrupting me. And one of the reasons I was focusing on the airport is because some of the testimony talks about the noise zone, the height of the allowing multiple housing units, you know, in a certain location related to the runway. And so it does apply, and we have those answers. So I'll zoom ahead because I think your time is more valuable than mine. Anyway, let's just go straight. Well, the rest is here. It's not in a wetland. The traffic impact analysis is primarily related to a single family dwelling. The approval criteria for a zone change on page 7 are really important. Is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? Is there a need? Are the uses permitted compatible with the land use pattern in the vicinity? Is the land physically suitable for the use in terms of slope, soils, and flood hazards? And are there public facilities and services, including transportation systems and access to accommodate the use proposed? And so the findings are in here in response to all those. I know you've had a chance to look at it, and I'm sure you have. One of the important ones, one of the ones that stand out in all the findings are, first of all, we have a housing shortage. We have a need for housing. We are required to provide housing for all types and tenures of people in Gerhart. There's one policy that says we shall not designate any more property for commercial development. And that's, I gotta say, it's a little different from all the different plans I've ever seen. But, you know, planning is a balance of goals. You can't meet every goal on your plan at the same time, and that's one. Another one is that you shall not tolerate discriminatory housing practices, and you shall provide housing for everybody. So how do you balance those things? And the transportation one is you have higher density housing, and this is not high density housing itself as a project, it's just one house. You need to be near a high corridor, transit corridor, and this is 1 block from the highway, so that's a big advantage. Peter, go ahead. Is that okay?
So I think it's important to look at some of our reasoning around this because the reasoning was based on health and safety, in that Gerhart is unique compared to other cities such as St. Helens, in that all of the homes in Gerhart are on septic systems instead of sewer. So as we've looked at different uses and new uses, and a prime example of this would be our short-term rentals. We looked at the septic tanks and the capacity, and we had maximum occupancies on those homes because the use was different than a traditional use in residential, whether it's R1 or whether it's residential kind of agricultural such as this one. And so in looking at the applicant's needs, which, you know, we're trying to meet, what it indicated is there could be as many as 15 people living in the house. And so as we looked at our code, and then to the extent that we need to work with the applicant to work around some of the health issues, make sure their drain field is sufficiently sized, make sure their septic tank is sufficiently sized. Our current for the residential, and they've asked for the C2, and this fits within the C2, and they haven't asked for an R3. So I would prefer that not be the designation. But if we look at making tweaks in the C2 to make sure that the folks living there are safe, and also that the wastewater, et cetera, is being dealt with. Our current residential, it's the number of bathrooms rather than the occupants. Unless it's a special use. Carol's gone through some of the reasons why this might not be considered a special use, although it is different than traditionally what we would think of as a single family residential use. But going back to those health and safety criteria and our ability to work with the applicant in order to make sure that their tenants have the best possible experience, being able to regulate from a C2 as far as size of the septic system and everything else, drain field, would be easier than trying to do occupancy that would go across the R1 zoning or the RA zoning. So that's kind of what Carol's talking about when she discusses us going back and forth. How can we do what Luba has consistently told us to do when people have appealed, which is to ensure the health and safety of everybody, as well as meet the needs of this organization. And there's plenty of evidence in the record about, including a lot of testimonials that the applicant provided to us about the quality of the service they provide and the experience that other communities have had working with them. So that was kind of the analysis that we did. And I get how a city that is on sewer instead of septic might come up with a different answer, but we always go back to the health and sanitary septic, and that's what our comp plan tells us to. And the reason for that is because there was a time when there wasn't sufficient land on lots for people to have their septic taken care of. And that's why we went from a 5,000 square foot lot to a 10,000 square foot lot minimum because of health and safety issues. This is a 0.8 acre site, which is over 30,000 square feet. So far more than a 10,000 square feet. And that's good too, because that impacts where drain fields could go. But that was the analysis that we used to get to the C2. And so I would very respectfully disagree with some of the other what is allowed by right comments that have been made, because our charter and everything else, our comp plan is a little bit different because of that septic issue. And but there is a path forward to meeting the needs of the applicant. The Clatsop County needs articulated in letters, and our goal 10 responsibilities while also protecting health. And so I just want to be very clear that that was the lens that we were reviewing this application through. And those were, and it's in their application, they're being completely transparent that there could be up to, 2 adults and a child, because they do family reunification per bedroom. And so that is why we kind of arrived at the path that we arrived at, and that is a path that can get them to yes, but also will help so that we don't have to necessarily look at this occupancy issue in an R1 zone, because then it gets a lot trickier. And so this is kind of a, I hope, an easier path to get where the applicant and a lot of other stakeholders would like us to go. So that's what I'd say. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Can I ask you one question?
You're in charge. This is your time.
Okay, Peter, the LCDC rep is more comfortable with the RC zone because the R3 residential zone category, because it keeps the land available for housing and not taking any out of our inventory. And so they might be commenting on that, but they haven't. So wanted to let you know.
Well, the applicant asked for the R2 zoning, and I think I'm guessing the reason they did that is because we said in many respects to the occupancy, this was closest to in definitions. And as Carol said, our code is old and needs to be revamped, but we're all very busy. But so hopefully we'll get to that, but we have to use the code that we have. And the residential facility is allowed in an R2 zone.
R3, R3
Excuse me, C2, I meant C2.
and C2, they're both.
Okay.
So,
both
right, so
zones.
they're asking for a C2. We have a letter from a lawyer objecting to an R3 designation. My advice to council is, given that they asked for the C2 zone, given that we have opposition to an R3, that it sure seems like the path of least resistance will be that C2.
I have a question. Peter, if we change it to R3 and there's no other R3s in that vicinity, that's called spot zoning, right? And how do you feel about that?
There are a myriad of reasons that I believe strongly, and as long as we have been talking about this application, have been advocating for a C2 zone, because that is consistent with the properties around it. Why certain properties got this RA when don't even meet the minimum lot standards for that zoning instead of a C2 when they're surrounded by commercial is beyond me, but I wasn't the one creating the map. But yes, the spot zoning is of concern to me. The letter from a lawyer opposing the R3 is of concern to me. The fact that the applicant asked for the C2 after discussing it with our planning staff, and that's the application in front of us, is another reason. There really are no shortage of reasons why I think that going with an R3 has considerably more legal risk than a C2.
Well, my only concern, Peter, is that we've had quite a few comments have been pertaining to the comprehensive plan, which speaks specifically to no more commercial, designations within the city. And so, aren't you suggesting that we make a commercial designation by the path you're on, when that's against the intent of the comprehensive plan?
I mean, we have multiple factors that we're looking at. So we have a state land use goal 10, which is a variety of housing options. We have a DHS funded program. We have state agencies and others weighing in on this. There is no easy answer for how we can do this, and every answer has legal risk. So let's say that we said, all right, Carol's initial analysis was that this could happen via right. And then we have 15 people, 15 occupancy in an R1 zone on a 10,000 square foot lot. I mean, that's going to create a different set of issues. To the extent that this is consistent with a residential facility, which, I believe it is. And that's certainly what DHS was, as I understand it, providing grant funds for. Then doing an additional 0.8 acres of commercial, I think, is lower risk than trying to kind of shoehorn it into another designation that might not work. But that's just my opinion. And again, all these decisions come with legal risk.
Peter, can you clarify again why C2 gives advantages in regards to kind of septic regulation, if you will, versus leaving it RA or going to R3?
Well, because our regulations really need to be consistent across the zone unless we are clearly able to articulate why, such as short-term rentals, why it would be different. So, and the way that we did the short-term rentals was, again, in order to get the permit, people had to do the septic inspection. They weren't allowed to use the cesspool, and we had the occupancy. And so that's kind of how we got at that. This isn't completely analogous to that situation. But if we're working with the applicant on health and safety issues, and it seems like the applicant will work on us, then making some tweaks to the C2 zone or facility would have substantially less ripple effects than doing something all across the residential zone, in my opinion.
Okay, I guess the reason why I kind of went down that path is some of the correspondence suggested a concern about precedent setting in relationship to spot zoning or changing it to this particular zoning category. And so what I was tempted to do is, just because Carol's analysis suggested we could just leave it RA and allow this use because it seems to be permitted in RA or in any residential or residential districts, that there would be some advantage in just leaving it alone. I realize, though, that your point is that makes it more difficult to regulate the septic characteristics of the lot, given the possible 15 residents. So I understand.
On the other hand, there's the condition of approval would certainly require DEQ analysis before occupancy for their septic system and its capacity. And if that passed and the system failed later down the road with more people there, then they'd have to upgrade the system anyway per DEQ standards.
So Carol, you're saying that that's somewhat independent of the category that we select here, or possibly even leaving it at RA? Those DEQ standards would have to be applied regardless?
Yeah, regardless.
So again, I want to just suggest to my other planning commissioners that the possibility of just leaving this RA would avoid setting.
We're not having, John, we'll wait for that till after all testimony is done, please.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and we're losing Peter, so, but anyway.
Sharon has a question.
Sharon, you have a question for Peter?
I do. Peter, I have a question. I just wondered if discriminatory housing practices plays any role in this consideration.
I mean, if you look at if you look at the materials that Carol provided under the federally protected classes, you know, this isn't. I'm not terribly concerned about that. Really, I think that we would have an issue with that. Really, what I've tried to do is look at our code and look at their use and their plans for that. And again, they've been incredibly transparent about what they intend, and to figure out what zoning is we're the closest to just saying, yeah, this is going to be allowed. And in that C2 zoning, because this does seem in some respects similar to you know, a residential treatment facility or a treatment facility of that kind. And they certainly have requirements to the occupants living in this house. There are expectations for them, and they have to follow that program. And they're going to have a van that's going to be transporting people to appointments and doing things of that nature, in addition to the bus stop being close by. So if we're looking at what box does this most easily fit, I think that is the box. At one point, we led the state in per capita LUBA appeals. So I always am looking through the lens of, you know, how are we able to make, you know, what are the legal arguments we're able to make in order to meet our goal 10 obligations while also following our code and comp plan. And I could be absolutely wrong, but to me, this felt like the path of least resistance.
Goal 10 is housing. that he keeps referring to goal 10, state goal 10 housing. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Peter, been bothering me. Affordable. Carol uses the term affordable housing. To me, affordable and free are not the same, is that correct?
Well, this really isn't an affordable housing issue at all. We're not trying to cite or plan new housing that has income limitations on it. That's not what they're trying to do. This is this is an organization that has a history of working in different communities and with different populations, and they've received those state grant funds, and they look for houses such as this. And so, the income that the occupants may receive, or there are no income limitations on, as I understand it, on who's going to live here. It's not like can't make more than 30% of the what have you. So I don't think this is an affordable housing. I don't know how we even, I don't think that's relevant. Though there is a need for housing in Clatsop County.
Any other questions for Peter? Yeah, we don't have any more questions at this point.
Great.
Okay.
Come back if you can. Wherever you're going.
Yeah, I'm staffing another meeting, so it's very exciting. It's going to be an exciting night for me.
Thank you. Okay, maybe I'll just wrap up then. You know what the criteria are, so I'll lay it out for you for your decision, and I think at this point we'll move on to the applicant's report.
Okay,
Unless you have any questions for me.
do we have any questions for Carol at this point? We probably will have many questions for you later.
Okay.
I know that I would like a correction on the map. They designate 101 as parkland, and that is very confusing to me. On the maps provided, and please correct that on anything that you file.
That's GIS.
Well, I don't care.
No, I was that.
It says parkland, not that, in your information. Okay, no, it just, okay. We've got piles of paper here, people, so, excuse me. All right, so, at this time, we will hear from the applicant. So whoever is speaking, please stand, say your name, your address. That's all they need, right? Yes, your name and your address, please.
Would you like to stand at the stand?
Sure. My name is Melly Rose. My address is 5415 Northeast 38th Avenue, Vancouver, 98661. I really just don't know what to share up here. Carol did a really good job of explaining who we are, what we do. We picked this house because, it had lots of parking, it was out of the way. We're not trying to cause any waves. We're just wanting to help people, their families. We're a lot passionate about what we do. We have a long history of success. We just want to do things right. If the septic thing is an issue, we need to do a different septic, then we're open to doing that. If it's something, we're very flexible, we just want, to make the most people happy as we can, but we still want to help people. And every other entity that we've gone into, I understand that Gear Heart is different, is leaned on the side that we are like a single family home, because we're not doing any services in the home. We're not like, there's no counselors coming in or therapists coming in. It's just people, that's a place they come home and it's safe for them to sleep, and they have an expectation, to be clean and sober. They'll have mentors and different people involved in their lives, helping them get their goals done so that they can get on and get back to self-sustainability. This the goal is to get these families back together and, their cases closed of child welfare, and just, learning how to navigate being clean and sober. Sometimes these people don't know, and they've never had the opportunity or a safe place to do so, and had some guidance. And that's where we come in. We've been doing it for a lot of years and we just, you know, I'm hoping that you guys will welcome us into the community, you know, without having too many issues. We're good neighbors. We have a policy, good neighbor policy. We are accredited by the National Accreditation of Recovery Residences. And in there, we have a lot of policies and procedures around good neighbor. You know, we don't park all over the place, and we keep the outside clean. We do regular inspections inside our homes, you know, make sure that nothing's falling into disarray. Our yards look nice, you know, we're mindful of all those things. And so I just want to put your minds at ease of that, and if there's some questions you'd like to ask, you know, I'm open. You know, we were saying, we're very transparent, you know, we're not trying to do anything. But, you know, all our cards are open. I'm really nervous. So,
Are you the only one speaking for the applicant?
no, I think there may be some other people that want to speak, maybe Tony or Sean. Okay.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
Shall we let them finish and then we'll ask the questions? Let them both finish and then we'll ask questions.
Very good.
Because they may answer them. Someone else speaks.
There you go.
Are you gonna speak? Let Tony, okay.
Program director.
Don't forget to say your name and address.
My name is Tony Fleming. I'm at 34426 Bergen Street, Warren, Oregon, 97053. And I kind of just shoot from the hip when I get up here because I have no prepared. I wasn't expecting to speak. I was expecting to speak. But I've been the program director. We opened our first house in December of 03. Was it 03? No, 13. I was trying to add 10 years to it. It seems like 03. But, you know, it comes with a lot of challenges, but because a lot of people get to us. If an alcohol and drug treatment program, residential program is for alcohol and drug addicts, we are a residential program for life skills. Birth certificates, social security cards, driver's licenses, if it's available. And sometimes we do whatever it takes to help them, assist them in getting anything they need to get their driver's license, social security cards. We just do everything. Bank account, we require people to save half of their money, whether it's TANF, employment, student loans, whatever, and we put it in a savings account. And when they graduate from our program, they get that money back. And we've had people leave with $16,000 dollars, and that's quite a chunk of change, but a lot of that came from maybe taxes or whatever, and people we just really wanted to save. But we also had people leave with a couple $100. And that was oftentimes people, we let folks spend their money if it's like paying back landlord debt, utility bills, getting a driver's license, getting a car. I just gave one of our participants $3,000 today out of her savings, and she went and bought a 2016 Kia something. Did you see that? Yeah. And so anyway, it's just exciting, and not everybody is a success story, but we had we're right around 70% no recidivism as far as getting re-involved with DHS, a success rate. I'm not happy with that number. I'm going for 100%, but that's not realistic. But I always check our back trail, look at our rearview mirror, what could we do different to improve that 70% and get up in the state. I don't care if it's 72%. I just need I need some growth. I am extremely passionate about. When I got out, I spent a little time in jail. When I got out, my goal was to be a drug and alcohol counselor and teach people how they never had to go back to prison. They took a temporary job, assessing and triaging folks to treatment, and treatment centers that took kids in them. And so I got to take part in reunification of children and treatment centers. That completely changed my mission. And so for 7.5 years, that's what I've been doing. Helping families reunite with their children. So she almost cried, I'm gonna almost cry too. But I'm extremely passionate about it. Everybody on our team's passionate about it. And we've had a lot of successes. And sometimes we're the last house on the block because ODHS has tried everything.
Yeah.
And some of those stories don't end well, but some of them, it's like, oh my gosh, they're thriving, they're stabilized, they're getting a job. Require people to work, and when they get their kid back and stabilize and find childcare and all that stuff. But just a short story before I stop. You know what NIMBY is?
Yeah.
Yeah, not in my backyard for those that, so we acquired a place in Scappoose. And the neighbors threw a fit, and it was not in my backyard, but go ahead and do it over there, but not in my backyard. But anyway, so Senator Betsy Johnson helped mediate a family meeting, and we were able to open that house. But it didn't make sense to me after about a year because the neighbors shunned the people in the house. We were perfect neighbors. And we can't go into a neighborhood where the neighbors are not welcoming. And not everybody has to welcome people, but it's like just obviously just unhappy with people in recovery being there. And so anyway, we took extra care for the lawn, the noise, everything else. And then I went around and knocked on the doors when we left, because we had to end the contract because we just weren't feeling comfortable. And I went around and knocked on the doors. We're leaving. I hope we didn't disrupt your place. And I did it with a generosity spirit. And everybody said, you guys have been great. And so NIMBY isn't an issue in this location because it is, and we chose it because it doesn't have a lot of residential folks that would really go up in arms about it. But we're passionate about what we do. We want to be part of your community, and that's all I have. Thank you.
I have one thing. If you may.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sean Bauer, I'm Executive Director for
Leonard.
Sean Bauer, Executive Director for Iron Truck Network. A lot of time network gets left off there, just because it's so quicker. And I just.
Address.
Address 2215 Southeast 135th, Portland, Oregon, 97233. And just wanted to say a little bit about that. It's Iron Truck Network, and iron is because we suffered struggle. Sometimes it's incarceration, sometimes it's just struggle. The root meaning of tribe is family, and we're a network of people in recovery. And so we really want to be true to our name. And recovery is a broad word. It's not always alcohol and drugs or crime. There's a lot of other things. We say it's pressures and barriers. And I know that we all have pressures and barriers. They may be different from person to person or family to family, but and our success rate that Tony was talking about, even Columbia County said a couple of years ago that we had lowered foster care by 25% in that county. But the parents really need the credit for that. Yes, we provide a platform, and that's what we're asking to do here. But the parents really do the work by having safe and supported, accountable housing. And so I just really wanted to emphasize the fact that, we're not coming into the county to take money from the county. We do have a contract with ODHS. It was one of the stigmatisms that came when we came to Columbia County. And this Clatsop County is the same district with DHS. And so it was one of the stigmatisms that the supervisor had there. And we were able to change that point of view. We become a stakeholder in the community, and we actually hire within. We have we currently have 3 of our former clients are now staff members and being able to give that back to other parents that are coming into the program. One works in our facilities department, one is a mentor, another one is a mentor. So that's also something that just comes along with that flavor of having this type of program, is that parents that are Clatsop County parents will come through our program, and hopefully eventually they'll either be staff members. And our whole overarching goal, sorry, I meant to say this earlier, is our goal, or what we're commissioned to do, is get parents back to self-sustainability. So again, back to the license, the job, their own place, things like that, so they can get back into the community and just be here as a community member. that's what our goal is, that, again, that's what we're commissioned to do. Thank you.
What questions from commissioners now? I know someone said they had a question over here.
Well, I did, I guess I'm just wondering a bit more about the nuts and bolts of how you operate in the sense that you have families in there and you talk about, you don't really have counselors permanently, but you have to give guidance in some fashion. So I'm just curious about how the guidance gets implemented to your clients.
Yeah, we do have should I stand up?
You're fine right where you are.
Okay. Melly's trying to make me stand up. No, we have a set of housing guidelines that are pretty comprehensive. There's a blackout period, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the house time. You got to sign in, sign out, where you're going to go, your expected time you're going to return, and then the actual time you're going to return. There's a house manager on site that lives there, and a mentor, what we call him a reunification specialist, but it's actually a mentor, but who is a 40-hour position working there. And that's the guidance around whatever the mandates from DHS or corrections or whoever it is. We get a list of what those mandates are from whatever organization they're tethered to. Plus, we have some mandates of our own, not necessarily mandates, but some guidance around those things, those social norms, the people that we all, you know, I didn't think it was normal before. It's like it is to me now. It's like I got a driver's license today, and you know, I pay my car insurance. I do things that weren't normal to me before, and we try to normalize things. And I will say that you don't just say something and like a light switch, it changes. Behavior change takes time. Bad behavior takes time too. And it's all about changing the pathway, neurotransmitter pathways in your brain, that you have a core values from when you were probably young. I hope that people started off with core values, and somehow they got like this in the word core values. And it's based mostly on what it took you to get your next high or to get or whatever. And so your core values switch. So we try to get those back in line and try to get people to buy into where their core values are all messed up. And not everybody, somebody might just be like this or just a little bit. Different people come in with, and we look at everybody with their own, we don't treat everybody the same. Everybody has we just approach everybody with a different, whatever their needs are, yeah, where they're at.
And to add to that, we do have like regular rules for like regular bedtime for the children, and they're doing things outside the house, like they're going to parenting classes, or they're in outpatient treatment, they're doing stuff that we don't provide, that they're involved in other community partner services as part of their guidance.
It's pretty, if you know anything about Oxford housing, you know, it's self-pay housing. What people refer to us as Oxford's housing on steroids. So we and DHS has learned to trust us. I say ODHS actually, but trust us with the children that get returned, because we are really, I don't want to call it micromanaging, that's a negative connotation, but we really do keep track of where everybody's at, who they're hanging around with, where their kids are at, and how well are they caring for their kids, because we report objectively to ODHS, and not to be telling on people, but to this kids' behavior is crazy. It's like, man, give us some help over here. We need, you know, a parenting coach or some sort of child therapy or whatever that is. So we address issues as they arise, and we've been very successful. So
Sure.
So not all residents are employed, is that what you're saying?
Most of them are.
They're not.
Not to begin, but that's one of their goals as well. They're there to work on to get this job. Maybe they need to spend the first month or two working on just going to treatment, intensive treatment, and getting their tools to stay sober. Then they start the job search, and it's just kind of the progression in the end. hopefully have a job. when it gets
Okay.
closed.
And how is drug use monitored?
We take frequent, we, I don't wanna speak for these drug addicts. But I'm a person in recovery, I know every trick in the book. And we have every method of, I don't necessarily wanna catch people as much as I wanna intervene so we can provide whatever services we can intervene on that.
Yes.
But we do lab UAs, we utilize a precision lab diagnostic, and we also have instant UAs, we have mouth swab, and we also have a breathalyzer. That's those three methods to be able to try to, if we needed to catch that.
Instant fentanyl swab, fentanyl.
Yes.
What's typical length of stay of a family?
6 to 9 months.
If there's an incident, an emergency call to the police, who does the police contact at the home?
Don't see the staff members, it's still there, the house manager.
There's a house manager at all
Yeah.
times.
There's a house manager there that the renters, live in the community and they come and see them there, but we have a house manager that lives there.
Good.
And. Just call us.
Okay,
Carol,
so,
you said at all times, that's a kind of a misnomer a bit, because the house manager needs to get out of the house occasionally too.
you said
But
the
about
house,
80-85% probably.
you said the house manager's on site 40 hours a week.
No, the mentor.
The mentor's on site.
Not necessarily on site, they're just.
So is the house manager there 24/7?
At night,
Live there, they have a room there.
They live there,
yes.
but they go out during the day.
Yeah, oftentimes. So what I'll tell you is some house managers, based on the pay they're getting now, and how much money they want to earn.
Yeah.
While our mentor is in the house, they'll be at their part-time job, most of the time it's part-time work. So sometimes our house managers get part-time work. So we're still staffed.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's still staff. We have between Tony being the program director, stopping in at our locations, and the reunification specialist, that's our word for mentor. The mentor is working with them throughout the day. House manager is responsible for being there at night. So if they do have that part-time job, it's a day job because their job mostly is at night to make sure that folks are coming home, bedtime things are happening, and that there isn't a bunch of disarray in the evening.
But my concern is your other locations are in what we refer to as the valley. And so sometimes you can't get down here to the coast. We have snow and ice between here and there. My other concern is you don't provide any services. So where are these people going to get services? Because our community doesn't have those.
Well, we do have access to what services there are, and we've been on the family treatment court, kind of a fly on the wall there, so we're learning the services that are available. But, sometimes we may just have to access 12-step meetings or smart recovery or whatever that looks like for folks. I mean, 12-step is an evidence-based program that gets results, and you combine it with a safe and stable housing along with motivation for the participant to remain clean, and so Columbia County is similar. We don't have much over there either.
Okay, I don't know Columbia County, but I know Plaquemines County.
Yeah.
Where am I living? Plaquemines.
I think similarly, what's the name of the place?
CBH.
CBH, yeah, there's CBH, and similarly in St. Helens, there's a Columbia County Mental Health. So it's real similar in that they got the market cornered as far as drug and alcohol goes in mental health treatment. And we've been doing really well in a partnership with CCMH, getting people into treatment. That's what they need.
Okay, and another question for you. On your application, you said you had 28 locations, but your website says you have 14. I left my notes at home. Is the website badly out of date?
That's my fault. Our website manager is only able to update if we update all the information. We've added a handful of houses over the last 2 years through COVID. And that is an oversight. There's 28 locations in 6 counties. This would be the 7th county. So, and a 29th location.
Okay, and in your response, when you were asked about, police calls, the answer was kind of vague, and I didn't know if you could give me anything else, as I recall, I can't find it, it says, yeah, a couple of calls or something, but it really didn't answer the question. Can you?
So I know what question you're talking about, I answered that.
Okay.
So it's hard to say an average because we have so many houses in there and it's just so different, I'll have one house that never has had a police incident, and then I'll have one that's had 2 or 3. But there's not like a bunch, it's not like they're there weekly or even monthly. Sometimes someone will have a mental health incident and we need to call. There's been, but it's never, there's not like a crime going on there. It's just, sometimes it may look like the police there because they have their own probation and the probation officer will come to check them and they dress them on your your kind of outfit and stuff. That might look like the police. As far as like emergency services being called, it's not very regular. Like many houses have never had it and some have had it multiple times. So it's hard to answer that.
Well, yeah, I thought, well, that doesn't really tell me. I guess my other question is because I'm kind of a data-driven person. I have no idea what the need is. I have nothing in this documentation you've submitted to tell me how many cases we have, how many people are in need of this in Clatsop County, because the application from Carol is there is a need. I don't know what the need is. Yes.
So, as Tony referenced, we're gonna fly on the wall in the family treatment court with Judge McIntosh here in Clatsop County for the last couple of months as they're standing up that program. There's currently 3 with a couple on the wait list, 4 now, 4 applicants just with the family treatment court part. Then we have ODHS, so those are folks that may not be part of the criminal court, but there was still an issue, a safety concern why ODHS came in their life. Right now, like we've said, we could have 5 families, and they're like, well, they're ready to give us 5, they're ready to give us 10, because what they want to do is they want to break between just ODHS and family treatment court. And that if we were open tomorrow, they'd all be full, because they're waiting with families that are trying to get in to get some services and that are wanting to participate in family treatment court, but saying, I'm more worried about where I'm staying, so I can't attend family treatment court because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get there. So.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, so many of our folks just don't have appropriate, safe and stable housing to where DHS can return their kids to them. And there's a lot of folks like that, and I experience it on a daily basis. We have, when you said 28 houses, I have 5, and 5 of these are program houses, what this is going to be. So there's a big difference between the 23 and my 5. I say my, but it's ours, but I manage 5 of them that are ODHS, and they're the ones on steroids, but we don't have any problem. We have a 17 family capacity in St. Helens, and they keep us busy, so.
Can you say that one more time? The Iron Tribe is the braid between DHS and family treatment?
That's what this usage.
Yeah.
That's what this usage. It'll be a break between family treatment court and ODHS. FTC with Judge McIntosh. You do now.
Do we have a drug court?
Yeah,
I don't visit it.
Yeah, you do now. It's been for a few months now. Like I said, Judge McIntosh is they have 4 participants, a couple of them live at Helping Hands. One of them lives in a family, and one is still houseless. So out of the 4 families that are actually participating in court each week, that they show up and cuts it.
I have a couple questions. First off, thank you guys for explaining what you do. I know that's very important work, and thank you for your service in that area. I can't speak for the whole planning commission, but I think most of what we're dealing with today is really like some logistical issues and stuff, so it's not any sort of judgment or anything on your services and the people in that way, at least for me. But my questions thus are logistical. Are the residents to be in this home, are they from Clatsop County?
Yes, we won't take any cross-county participants. Everybody will be from Clatsop County.
Okay. So, and that's probably part of the family reunification part to keep them close together.
It is, but in a couple of other counties, we have done cross-county things, but it was because it made sense. Maybe a family member lives there, maybe the kids are in foster care in the county that they want to cross-county to. It has happened, but very rarely.
Can you run that property with, I think, is it the 5 residents with 5 people living in that house? Is that viable?
No, because if you count children, like one family could be 3, and then you get a house manager, or like one person that can't get a kid back with that, or they can't. So it's just not viable to just leave it in, under the guidelines of just 5 individuals on home.
In reference to what Peter said, yeah, what Peter said about, we have never, ever, not even close, had a house full of couples. The couple is an anomaly. Most of our parents come in, a single mom, single dad, with 1 or 2 come in for children. But we are serving probably, I don't know, Melanie, I think I got one couple in St. Helens out of 17 rooms, one couple. And so usually our occupancy is we are available for moms and dads, but that's usually not the case. And I'm sorry for stopping.
No, that's, I want to hear what you guys have to say. We will have our chance here soon. I'm sure, or have you looked at other housing options in the area, the city or the county that don't require a zone change?
Yes, I've looked everywhere, and the reason we just really like this one so much is just the location, being close to the highway, being, not having really close, like not like being in a neighborhood where the neighbors are this close, there's commercial areas around, it's centrally located, between like Astoria and Seaside. It's, because some of the treatment stuff's in Seaside and the court's in Astoria. The house just seemed perfect, so.
The other, the other part about it is that, from the front, you'll see a 2-car garage, 2-car driveway. It has a long driveway along the whole property that would be running east and west in the back. And so the additional parking for people that, not everyone has a car when they come, but obviously it's one of the goals. That parking or any of that volume would be around the back and has adequate, again, a whole big driveway street behind it that is part of the property. So that's another thing that I feel like a choice about the property where we're like not having to jockey or take up street parking or any of that when it already has it built into the back.
Part of our policies and procedures and our good neighbor policy procedures is to, have adequate parking. So we choose places like that, and a lot of places don't have adequate parking, so. Especially like in Astoria, if I want to be in Astoria, it's like all street parking, and so that kind of rules out a lot of those homes. Homes are bigger there, but there's not any parking.
We started there.
Gotcha. Very good, thank you.
Okay. John, did you have any questions for them?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, all right, then moving on. Now we will hear from proponents, opponents, and neutral comments. Those people speaking will be given 5 minutes if you have submitted written documentation and said everything in the written documentation, please do not read letters that we've already sent to us. Are there any proponents here tonight? Seeing none. Are there any opponents? Yes, you may take the podium. Are you Deanna?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I am Deanna Mansell. I live at 2945 Highway 101 North, Gerhart. I'm within 100 feet of the proposed Iron Tribe proposal. And I have some observations because I've lived at my house for the last 42 years. I'd like to explain to the Planning Commission first the history on why we have such convoluted zoning in that area. And it's because we have the Seaside Airport. And so when the Gerhart Planning Commission developed the zoning in the 1980s, they determined that all the land on the Oster Road and Railroad Avenue, which was within 500 feet of the runway protection zone. In the letter I submitted, I have some diagrams. Anyway, they determined that based on the Seaside Airport, that the land should be RA. So that's why the Fuller property is RA. It was determined that C2 is compatible with an airport. So that's why Hollander's property is zoned that way, and the storage units are zoned that way. Bayview, they're in the Seaside Urban Growth Boundary, that's airport development, but all that zoning is consistent with being around an airport. So when Gerhart determined the densities, they determined that 1 unit per acre was the appropriate zoning. And so that's the way it is now. Another thing that when we're talking about the Fuller house, you have 4 to 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. That house, just as it stands, could accommodate probably 10 individuals. And I would not see a problem with that house accommodating 10 individuals. Now I have my septic system is up on the railroad right away. We have a very high water table, and I use a real fancy sand filter system. It serves 3 people. It takes a huge area, and it's very adequate for 3 people. So I'm just wondering, well, if you increase the density of people to 15 or 16, it's going to overload the groundwater. And I also noted, like when I was at a medical center a couple of days ago, people don't seem to know how to use septic systems. I went in there and someone had shoved a bunch of baby wipes in the toilet. And you can imagine people that live on sewer systems getting into a situation like this. And so, I've, kind of got some concerns. I mean, I can live with the RA zone and let the zone, the house dictate how many occupants could live there. But I really don't agree with the C2 or the R3. I just don't think it's appropriate. So with that, you've got my other letters in the record, so I'm not going to repeat that. But that is my feeling about this. Thank you.
thank you for your input. Do we have any other opponents here tonight? Seeing none? It's some, okay. Any neutral comments?
I did not register, can I speak?
Okay,
Bob Moore.
yes. You need to stand up and give us yours, and slowly,
Okay,
because she's got to write down, because I don't, and then,
my name is Bob Moore,
and then when you're, I will ask you to fill that out before you leave tonight.
and I did not intend to speak tonight because we did send information. Bob Moore, 271 D Street, Gerhart. And then that's PO Box 2759, Gerhart. The gist of our comments really gets back to things we think it should be approved of any zone change in the existing zoning for the use, and then concern like Carol mentioned, make sure we understand the septic situation on the site. But that's the gist I was going to tell you after that. That's our analysis of it. It should be approved in the existing zoning. We shouldn't be going through any zone change. And we think they offer a great service. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any rebuttal at this time? No. Okay, then I will close the public hearing. And now it is time for the commission to have a discussion, to talk amongst ourselves, to ask any questions of Carol or each other or anything to do with this topic. Is there someone that would like to lead off? Yes, Sharon.
I just want to be clear about this, Carol. So even though the comp plan says that the city should not designate additional property for commercial development, that's not a hard and fast rule, so it kind of has to take in all, that's a question.
Well, it sounds hard and fast, and I mean, it sounds officially permanent, but I think Peter mentioned too, that you have so many goals to meet and overlap and apply. There has to be, the nature of land use is not always that black and white. So I hope that explains it. The intent is clear. And if somebody were trying to bring a shopping center in with a lot of traffic and a huge change, then I'm sure it means that. But this is not exactly at that level. And it's really a zoning, question, how do we fit this in to our zoning? So I don't think you should have that stop you, it's too black and white.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? What is your theory on competing policies and goals in a comprehensive plan that butt up against each other?
I think that 7 people have to make that decision. It's.
Bring your good answer. Sharon, do you have anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay, Russ?
So to the zoning specifically, so we've had discussions of, RA, C2, R3.
Right.
So is RA, can we approve it under RA?
Well, you might want another opinion. I don't know, Chad, are you over there to back me up? That's what other jurisdictions have been doing. I talked to planners, you saw the back and forth. That's how they're defining it, as a single family home. And yes, leave it RA and take that approach and require the septic upgrades, the fire, the health, safety, welfare standards that you would apply in a building permit. And I do believe the most current legislation is trying to go that way. But this is new ground, so I don't have any experience with it.
Do I read in here
Just
that?
Are you done?
Well, yeah, no, I just, I understand
follow-up
where
Okay, well, okay,
your concern, the HB 2538 is kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
In my eyes, and maybe that's, you know.
Well, and so is the fair housing thing, which it really comes down to statewide, is that group homes should be treated the same as a single family house. You should not single out residential homes or residential care facilities or anything. It's saying they have to be allowed in all residential zones. Because they're residential.
Right, so that mandate from the state, the only thing that we have any control over is what you spoke about, the building, the safety, the septic, that sort of thing is our input to the 2538.
Yes, and even, you could even leave that to the building inspector. I mean, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
But if you want to make sure, if you wanted to say, for instance, in addition to the septic, that no parking is allowed on the Bayview old right of way up there on Railroad, and that all parking has to be off the street, I think that would be wise, that would help in any sort of enforcement, that be a strong message, maybe that even a signage there.
Do I read in these materials that leaving it RA restricts the number of people in the house, or does the state law override that?
I'm not a lawyer, but state law, I believe,
Overrides that.
other planners have determined that state law overrides it.
So why wouldn't we leave it RA?
It's an option, you know.
Same answer that you
Some
gave.
people get to decide.
Yeah, we get our hands slapped sometimes when we make those decisions. So we went at full area, and we thought it was fair to notify the neighbors. Just by the way, the airport, you know, I appreciate all the work that you did, and very professional, and the information you provided was way beyond the pale. We used to get to see from, it's very technical.
Well, you know, I used to serve on the Seaside Airport Committee 29 years ago.
No wonder.
And that issue came up last month with the Seaside Airport Committee, and I had to open up all the new regulations and go, what the heck, you know, what's going on? So that's why I came up with this stuff.
Well, it's very useful and informative, but what I want to say is, this is a highly underused light aircraft airport. This is not FAA. They don't even have FAA funding or anything. It's a
Well, I also ran into the State Board of Airport land use compatibility law.
Yes, I've seen those.
And so I tried to cite that because it kind of acts as a guide for other airports.
Yeah, and we can talk about this later, but the thing is, it's the scale of, you know, noise and so on. It's different in this airport. There's 4 airplanes out there.
So I talked with someone on the airport committee who has a hangar and a plane there as well. Because I wanted to know if they had any problems or objections with this type of situation. And the answer was no, not at all.
Firsthand. That's good testimony.
One thing I've been in.
You're looking at me.
Well,
I mean, I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole I've never been down before. And I am really torn and I'm not knowing why. And I listen to you guys and I wish I were more like you.
Yeah.
These people are incredible. I don't like rezoning. I don't like rezoning, spot zoning. I think it sets a bad precedent. And I can identify with the people who are on the east side, because I think the last 4 meetings, their lifestyle's been under attack. There's lots that are being asked to be subdivided now if they want to put this home over there. And that's going to be the battlefield coming forward. I really wish there was a way we could leave it RA and have them allowed to do it. But the problem I have with that, the conditions that we put on it may be too severe that they couldn't afford to do that. So I don't know where to go with this. My heart tells me, let them do it. I mean, my brain tells me it may be a bad idea from a zoning perspective. So maybe I'll abstain.
No, wouldn't be the first
No,
one.
it's just really, it's really difficult. I wish somebody here would give me a good reason not to do this.
Maybe I will, Terry.
Good. I want to know, I want to do this so badly that I want somebody to convince me not to do it.
Okay. John,
Yeah, this is to some degree a follow-up to Terry as well. And I am not the one who's going to convince you not to do it, because I also am very pleased to hear what this organization does for people in need and would like to see them be able to do this in our community. But you implied, Terry, that if we leave it RA, that we might also impose upon them lots of other requirements. But my understanding, Carol, it's really a question to you, is that would really be a building inspector issue, not ours, right? If we leave it RA, we don't do anything at all. We don't have to be involved. Is that correct?
No, I think that's right. The building inspector, maybe they have to get DEQ approval. That's everybody in Gerhard does. And,
Right.
and it's.
So leaving it RA, we don't take any action at all.
But you know, the parking, you might want to make it loud and clear that there shouldn't be any parking on any public streets.
Right.
In that neighborhood, and that would help us, but otherwise, it's all building inspection material.
Just to clarify that one point about the parking situation, if the consensus of the commissioner, which I don't believe we have necessarily yet, but if it landed on leaving it RA, then would we instruct the applicant to withdraw her application and we wouldn't play a role at all?
Huh. That's a new one. Boy, that'd be easy. That's a good idea. And or at least recommend to council, since, you know, notice has already gone out for the council hearing, if it were to be set up, that they deny it. I mean, that they leave the zoning as it is and reject the.
No, notices don't come until.
Okay. Oh.
we've been here a long time.
Well,
Angelina, what did you
we,
say?
We're getting ahead of the game.
we're kicking the can down the road to somebody.
No, I mean, again, this is brand new, but just logically speaking, John, I think the idea about with the applicant withdrawing it, based on the city's new information, that they go through the proper channels in the zone that it's in.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Did you
Okay.
clarify that for me?
I spoke it to. Do you have anything else, John?
No, that's all.
Okay, Terry?
I'm not sure I understand this concept that you're proposing where they withdraw.
Well, it's not unusual to withdraw an application.
Right, and where does that leave them if they do that?
Then it's, it
No zone
stops,
change,
you know,
they get to do it.
there's no zone change.
But they get to do it.
No.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Okay, so where I'm coming from is, one, they applied for C2 and then you threw in R3. I've never seen a planning director say, oh, I'm gonna give you something else. So that really threw me off.
I know,
Thank you.
it's my old age.
Okay, I know septic systems have a way of telling the residents, oh, you've got a problem. You've got too many people using it at one time. You cannot run laundry loads one after another. The septic system will tell you. So if you have multiple people in your home and they're overusing the septic system, they will soon find out. It's nothing like sewer coming up in your shower. Or in my case, buzzers going off all over the place. You had it, residential facility, you had here in the one point, a facility license. they're not licensed. You can't be a residential facility and you require them being licensed, a facility licensed.
Well, that's the definition right now.
Though that's the definition, but that's what you proposed, a residential,
Well,
right?
I know, but that's why the definition is outdated. They're not licensed anymore.
Right,
So, sorry, we don't exactly meet that old definition,
okay.
but that's most of them.
I wish the building inspector had given us some feedback on this particular one, or the city public works director, that would have helped. I know no reply, but perhaps we could encourage them on something like this.
We do, any ideas?
Leonard said he didn't have any concerns. That's why he didn't.
Okay.
And I had some conversations with them as well, they said it's a building code issue.
Okay.
If they do add bedrooms, that will trigger a whole DEQ review and possible extension of their system to be able to handle those.
Because you can increase, you can put in more tanks or increase size.
Besides the lot they have, they'd be able to probably, I'm assuming, increase the drain field and
Yeah.
potentially the tank size if they needed to.
Yeah, so, for me personally, I'd rather just leave it RA. I don't wanna see it being zoned into C2. I've had drilled in my head for the last 7 years, do not rezone something that is residential into commercial. And the R3, if we went that way, to me, that leaves open that door. They did speak about having to close one facility and because of the backlash from your neighbors. And then that would open that to be, if it was zoned R3, then someone else could come in and create something that we really weren't prepared for or thinking about. So I would prefer just leave it RA, or if the applicant wanted to. At any rate, that's where I'm at. And so we've had our discussion. What? Oh, you asked a question, didn't you?
No, that was the question period, that wasn't this period.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
So just to clarify, if it's remains an RA zone, the building inspector will determine the occupancy level.
Does he
The
determine it?
DEQ, he will,
DEQ slash building inspector.
but it goes off of bedrooms and
Okay.
there's no limit.
Bathrooms.
No, it goes off of bedrooms.
Okay, someone, Peter said bathrooms.
Yeah, you can
And
have a
there's no-
2-bedroom house with 17 bathrooms. That's. it would be-
Excellent.
It would be based
So
on.
he did say bathrooms.
Yeah, it goes off of bedrooms and
Right.
there's really no limit on how many people you can have in a bedroom.
Okay, so
How progressive.
that would potentially get them to their viable model that they need, and if they need to increase the septic or whatever, build out some walls or whatever they need to do, then that's that, and that's not on us, okay. In your report you wrote, Carol, the city of Gearhart is not a social service provider, nor does the city have the resources to directly develop affordable housing projects, but the city can take measures to increase housing opportunities. Right, and I didn't hear anybody in the audience or in the letters use NIMBY and say, well, we don't want it in our backyard. So I believe that this new strategy is the most viable one for sure, based on all of that. That's all I have to say about that.
And their new strategy is for them to withdraw their application.
No, they could stand up, they could raise their hand and say, and ask for that. The other choice is that we would take a motion in a second and vote accordingly. And so I have, you talk about new ground, here we are, I'm going, okay. I'm going to ask, what?
Sharon, has a question.
Sure, you had a question? A question? Okay, go ask your question.
No. So given those two choices, from our perspective,
Yes.
is it better for us to rule on this as opposed to them withdrawing for future sake?
if we vote on it, then that becomes a decision.
Right, and it's,
If they withdraw, it does not mean that something cannot be done in the future. Does that answer your question?
But if it's a decision that goes to council, if you vote.
Right, if we
Yeah.
vote on it and we send it on to council, and then they vote on it, and so it becomes, it's record. I mean, when it leaves here, it's record, and when it gets moved on to city council, it's record.
right, so
Okay.
is that the better route to take?
We can do that.
Well,
So I'm going to, what I'm going to do is move it ahead here. I'm gonna look at you. Is this too much? I mean, that's a heck of a thing to throw out at you. I would be going like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? But
I think, listening to where you guys, seems where you guys are all at, and where we've had this conversation with so many other communities, is just to stay as a single family, entity and move on to the building, inspector. And I would withdraw our applications.
all right, so I want it to be recorded, please, that the applicant, and that's Millie Rose, I have it written down here, has withdrawn the application. Okay,
It should on
thank you. So.
yeah, music's amazing.
So we will move on from there. I appreciate you coming here tonight. We all wish you the best of luck. We know that there are needs for your services. And I hope you can find that class that the county is welcoming to your office.
Thank you very much. I have a comment about the drain field. You can't park on drain fields.
Right.
We have
We do have 2 houses that have septic, and we have a plan for that. There will be a fence to not go, an indicator of where you can't go forward.
So this public hearing is closed, just in case you need to know it was closed. All right, we're gonna move on to the last part. We've got about 2 more minutes, everyone. We've got about 2 more minutes. Unfinished business, we don't have any new business, we don't have any concerns of the commission. Mr. Graff.
I will not be here in November. I need an excused absence. My grandchildren are coming for my birthday and I need to pick them up at PDX at 7:38.
Are you bringing us cake? Would you please send an email to that effect to Angelina so we will have a written record, please?
Thanks for letting us know.
Anything else from the commissioners? I've said it before and I'll say it again. I would like to see something done that we are not getting correspondence coming in an hour and a half before the meeting. That does not give us time to absorb.
Okay, so how do we do that?
You change your cutoff date for,
Be the day before?
I don't know if that's a policy done by the city or that's a policy, I don't know where that policy is coming from.
We're working on that now for the city council, so.
Okay.
We'll let them kind of hash it out from there, and then let you know what that is, and you can adopt.
Okay, thank you. We want to be fully informed and it's difficult. All right, we've already heard from the land use attorney. It is 7:56 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Corey, Mr. Corey,
Thank you, guys.
you please.
Good luck.
Thank you.